"Ma'am, don't get in the car." That shout split through the chilly air like a siren, sharp enough to freeze the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city with her hand still on the chrome handle of a black sedan. And the one who shouted wasn't her head of security, wasn't a bodyguard, wasn't some analyst reading risk charts. It was a janitor, a black single dad in gray coveralls, sweat shining on his face, keys jangling at his hip. For a second, nobody moved. Then security lunged at him, yanking his arms behind his back, pressing him hard to the pavement. And while his breath rattled, while the crowd of employees gathering outside stared at the scene, the CEO, Victoria Hale, did something no one expected. She pulled her hand away from that car like it had turned red hot. "Explain," she snapped at her head of security, eyes locked on the janitor. "False alarm, ma'am. Night staff. Name's Daniel Carter. He'll be removed immediately." But Daniel kept shouting even as the cuffs bit into his wrists. "Please don't let her in that car. It isn't safe." His voice wasn't wild, it was desperate, like a drowning man reaching for the last branch left above the water. And that was the moment Victoria froze, because she knew the look of a liar. She'd been CEO long enough to smell one from across a boardroom. And this janitor, he looked like a man telling the truth nobody wanted to hear. Within minutes, sirens screamed. A bomb squad rolled out a robot. The sleek sedan was ripped apart, every inch inspected. And after an hour, nothing. No bomb, no trap, just an expensive car sitting in the middle of the street, reputation intact. But Victoria's day completely shattered. She'd missed a meeting at the airport, a meeting tied to a project her company had poured millions into. Now, standing in the cold with her career on the line, she stared at the janitor still kneeling on the pavement. "You've got 5 seconds, she said quietly, close enough that only he could hear. "Give me a reason not to bury you for this." Daniel's lips trembled. He could have spilled everything, the late nights piecing together shredded papers, the graphs that didn't add up, the whispers of experiments that were never supposed to happen. But none of that would sound real. So he said 2 words barely above a whisper: "Neural decay." Victoria's face twitched. A blink too slow, a tightening at her mouth. It was the one secret buried so deep only her family and a handful of doctors knew. Her younger brother Andrew had been diagnosed with neural decay, a rare illness with no cure. She had hidden it behind firewalls, contracts, and layers of lies. And now a janitor had said it aloud in the middle of the street. "Release him," she ordered. Security balked. "He's in my custody. Take him upstairs." That's how a janitor who should have been in the back of a police cruiser found himself sitting in a glass boardroom on the 50th floor, sweat drying on his collar, eyes locked on the skyline while security guards hovered at the door. Victoria circled him like a shark. "Neural decay," she repeated coldly. "How do you know that term?" "My daughter Daniel said," voice breaking. "She's 7, diagnosed 6 months ago. They say she won't make it long." His chest heaved, his eyes wet, but his voice steadied. "I found shredded files in this building, pieces with numbers' initials. I pieced them together. It wasn't a cure. It was something worse. You're funding it. Your head scientist is hiding it." Victoria's jaw clenched. Her father had built this company with clean lines and cold rules, and she had painted over the cracks with hope. But here in front of her, a man who mopped her marble floors was telling her that the cracks were wide enough to swallow her brother whole. From that night forward, everything shifted. They became an unlikely pair, Victoria, the billionaire CEO with her reputation on the line, and Daniel, a janitor, with nothing left to lose except his daughter. Together with Marcus Kane, her head of security, they made a plan that sounded insane: break into the research facility her own company funded to find the truth. The night they went in, Daniel led the way. Pipes, conduits, drains. These weren't mysteries to him. He'd spent years inside systems no one else noticed. He crawled through dark tunnels slick with chemicals, his shoulders scraping metal, his breath echoing. Marcus covered their backs with military precision. Victoria, stripped of her tailored suit, followed in a field jacket tablet glowing with schematics. At one point, Marcus whispered, "Movement. Mercs. Not our guards." And Daniel realized the worse the people inside weren't protecting research, they were disposing of it. Not papers, not hard drives. People. When they reached the steel doors of an abandoned lab, the sound of a heart monitor bled through the wall. Victoria's brother was inside. The keypad lock blinked red. They had no time. Daniel knelt by a rusted purge lever hidden near the floor. "I can't open it," he said, voice shaking, "but I can make them open it." Victoria met his eyes. No hesitation. "Do it." He yanked the lever. Alarms shrieked, air sucked out of the room lights flashing red. Inside, scientists scrambled, pounding codes into the lock. The door blew open. Marcus leveled his gun. Victoria stormed in, and there was Andrew, pale, dying tubes snaking out of his arms. Daniel's eyes scanned faster than anyone's. He spotted a small amber IV bag tucked out of sight. "That one doesn't belong," he shouted. Victoria ripped it free. The monitor steadied one weak but stubborn beep after another. For the first time in years, Victoria's tears came hot and fast. She looked at Daniel not as a janitor, but as the man who had saved her brother's life. The rest of the night blurred in gunfire and blood. Marcus stayed behind to hold the line, his body braced against a storm of bullets so the others could escape. Daniel carried Andrew onto a stolen truck, smashing through a steel gate as alarms howled. Helicopters swarmed. Federal agents poured in. The villains were dragged out in cuffs. And by dawn, the world had shifted. News broke of illegal experiments, hidden contracts, human lives gambled away for profit. Victoria Hale stood in front of cameras, voice steady. "I take responsibility," she said. "But we're building something new." She announced the Hale Carter Foundation, named after herself and the janitor who risked everything. It would fund transparent research, open data, real consent. Families of patients would sit on the board. And she promised one thing above all: Daniel's daughter, little Emma, would be protected. When Emma received her first treatment, her small hand trembled less. She drew circles almost round this time and showed them proudly to her dad. He turned away to wipe his eyes. It wasn't a miracle, it was a start. Months later, a new plaque gleamed outside a modest brick building. Hale Carter Foundation. Inside hung a simple pledge: transparency, equity, respect. Daniel walked through those doors, not as a janitor, but as a co-founder. And yet controversy flared. Some claimed Victoria only did it to save her reputation. Others said Daniel was being used as a prop. Online debates raged. Was it redemption or damage control? But Daniel, he didn't care. Because every night he came home to his daughter drawing stars and oak trees instead of shaky lines. He knew what mattered. One evening, as Emma sketched their little house under a wide oak, she added 5 figures, her dad, Victoria, Andrew, and Marcus with his cane. Then she looked up and said, "No more gates, Daddy. Now the house has many keepers." Daniel smiled through tears. For the first time, he wasn't standing guard alone. So let me ask you what matters more in a story like this. The desperate shout of a janitor on a cold sidewalk, or the quiet drawing of a little girl who finally felt safe enough to dream. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the smallest voices, the ones nobody listens to, are the very ones that save lives.